All right. Thank you guys for coming out and checking out my webinar today on the great Belize real estate boom of 2017. Whether you're looking for property for investment, whether you're looking for property for retirement, whether you're looking for relocation, whatever the case may be, you're going to get a lot of amazing information out of this webinar. And I'm very excited to bring you this information. I want to thank you guys. It takes commitment to take time out of your day to take the 15, 20 minutes to watch this webinar and get educated on Belize real estate. So I commend you guys for doing so. My name is Will Mitchell, for those of you who don't know me, excuse me. And I first came to Belize over a decade ago. So I've had the opportunity to watch Belize and watch the island I'm located on, Ambergris Caye, grow from infancy. We're going to talk more about Ambergris Caye shortly here, but I have had the opportunity to watch it grow, which has been an amazing thing. I have 3 years of experience working at REMAX, helping roughly 100 clients find their dream investment properties. I've been working alongside John Turley. He's the owner of the entire region for REMAX Central American Caribbean. He owns offices in over 30 countries, over 60 offices, hundreds and hundreds of agents. So we look at deals from all over this area. And actually, I personally choose to invest in deals within this market. As you can see on my bottom bullet point there, I'm personally vested in numerous properties in this market. So I have different hats. I have the investor hat, I have the real estate agent hat, I have someone who's relocated. I have a lot of knowledge with regards to Belize real estate, and I'm more than happy to help you guys. If you have any questions beyond the webinar, feel free to email me. My information will be at the end of the webinar. Just to get going here, a couple general facts about Belize. As many of you know, Belize is an English-speaking country, and this brings a couple of distinct benefits. So coming along with being English, it's British common law. So the legal system is very similar to that you would find in the US or that you would find in Canada or in the UK, obviously. One of the things that comes along with that is full foreign ownership. So when people come down looking to buy property in Belize, you get a fee simple title with your property. Foreigners have the same ownership rights as local Belizeans would. And that really is an amazing thing when you compare to the rest of the region. So other countries like Mexico or Guatemala, countries that Belize borders, and other countries in the region that are Spanish speaking, they do not have British common law. They have Napoleonic civil law, or something that's very similar to Napoleonic civil law. And what this means is it's a two-tier ownership system for foreigners and for locals. So locals have better ownership and property rights than foreigners would. And when foreigners come in and invest in real estate, they would have to do through a Mexican corporation, for example, with a Mexican director, and they can technically own the property. So one of the great things about Belize, foreigners can actually own property here. Like I mentioned, Belize borders Mexico and Guatemala. And looking out to the east, we have that beautiful Caribbean shoreline. I'm actually sitting at my place right now recording this webinar, and I'm looking out at the waves crashing on the reef. I'm looking out at the beautiful turquoise water. I'm looking at the palm trees waving in my window. And it really just makes me thankful to be down here. It's one of my favorite things about being down here, being able to go for a dive in the morning or whatever the case may be, go for a swim. So I do love that. The population of Belize is 360,000. So we're a relatively young country, roughly 30 years old. And what that's given us, though, it's given us the opportunity to model characteristics and policies and traits from countries that we feel are doing a great job. One thing we actually modeled off of Costa Rica, who's a great custodian of their land, is we dedicated 46% of the land to national park and marine reserves. So 46% of Belize will never be developed. Obviously, the environmental benefits of that are amazing. We love the fact that the environment is going to be held intact here and that the government of Belize respects that. But from a real estate investment perspective, this is a very key stat, because when 46% of the land will never be developed, this puts scarcity on land. So 46% of the land will never be developed. This means that as demand increases and more people come into this market, real estate values are going to appreciate because of that limitation. Like I mentioned before, I live on the beautiful island of Ambergris Caye. It is the largest island in Belize. Belize has hundreds of small keys and small islands. It's always a fun adventure to go boat around and check these little islands out. But I love calling Ambergris Caye home. It's 24 miles long and 3 miles wide at its widest. And it is the #1 tourism destination in Belize, with over 70% of the overnight tourism arrivals coming to Ambergris Caye. So for those of you who have been down to Belize, I'm sure during your trip you came down to Ambergris Caye. For the most part, the majority of you would have. It's 12 miles from the mainland, and you can get here two ways. You can get here on Tropics or Maya's flight. It's a 15-minute puddle jumper flight over the beautiful Caribbean Ocean. I love just taking that flight and just looking out and seeing the beautiful scenery and just reflecting. It's such an amazing flight. Or you can do the water taxi, which is roughly an hour and a half long. Like I mentioned, it's the number one tourism destination, but something you might not have known, it's also the number one retirement and relocation destination in Belize. So we get a large amount of expats coming down here and a large amount of younger people relocating as well. It's created a great expat community here, very strong expat community with lots of activities and great sense of just friendship around the island. It's the second largest barrier reef in the world, the one I was just talking about, the second largest barrier reef in the Western Hemisphere, and that's located just 400 to 800 yards off the beach. And this is a good segue into a little history lesson about the island, because if you look at the map that I have on the left side here, obviously it's just kind of a general map, but you'll see that all the little arrows pointing to the side and pointing at little destinations are on the right side of the island. That would be the east coast. Now, when you're looking at a tourism destination, generally the more favorable side to develop would be the west coast. That's because you get those beautiful sunset views, something the east coast just doesn't tend to capture. Now, that commands a premium, so generally in any tourism destination, you'll see the west coast developed more heavily than the east coast. However, in Ambergris Caye, because it was a sleepy fishing village when the island was developed, and the only objective the fishermen had was to get out there in the morning and cast their lines and catch dinner and catch some fish, the island was developed on the east coast. Now, this isn't saying that you're not allowed to develop on the west coast. This is just where we are in the scheme of time, and we're going to talk about this more in great detail later in the webinar, because the west coast is just beginning to open up, and we're seeing a lot of amazing opportunities over on the west coast now. And obviously, like I said, you do have that premium sunset view, so it's a very interesting situation and a very interesting time in Belize right now. The population of the island is 24,000. It does in high season get all the way up to as far as 35,000. And some of you may be thinking, wow, it's a small population, but for an island, that could be, pretty big. But when you look at two comparable sized islands, Roatan, Honduras, and Grand Cayman and Cayman Islands, you'll see that we're actually not overbuilt, that we have a lot of room for growth. So those islands both are roughly the exact same size, and they have population of about 60,000 roughly. So we have a long ways to go, and we have a long ways to develop, and we're just at the tipping point of all of that growth right now, which is obviously the most exciting part here. Many of you have probably seen these reviews already, but I will touch on them again. Ambergris Caye in 2013 and 2014 was voted by millions of reviewers around the world the number one island in the world. We also have consistently for 10 years straight been voted number one island in the world to retire to by Islands Magazine. So any of you people who subscribe to Islands Magazine out there, I'm sure you'll have heard about Ambergris Caye in there as well. One of the key things we're going to look at here, this is one of the foundation pillars in this market, is tourism. One of the best kept secrets in a tourism-driven market is the distinct correlation between the change in tourism numbers and real estate appreciation. So when you look at tourism, as tourism increases, we tend to see a proportionate increase in appreciation in property values. Now, why would that be? Well, when a tourist comes down, or a certain group of tourists come down, a certain amount of them are going to choose to relocate or invest in real estate, which as a result of that is going to increase demand and drive values. So we can take the tourism numbers and we can actually distinguish what's going to be happening with real estate values in the future. So this slide here, I just have some basic stats for you to get an idea of what the tourism situation is in Belize. And you'll see at the top that Belize is the fastest growing tourism destination in the entire Caribbean. And we have the stats here to back it up. In 2014, and just to clarify here, it'd be disingenuous of me to tell you that we had 11.8 growth in 2014 if the year before we had a drop of 12% in tourism. So I will tell you that in 2014 we were at our all-time high in tourism. Now, as you can see, in 2014 we had an 11.8% increase in tourism. In 2015 we had a 6.2% increase, and in 2016 we had a 13% increase in tourism. And the numbers for 2017 are looking amazing so far, with the first two quarters essentially behind us now. We're going to be getting those numbers in shortly, but you can feel the growth on the island. So, and the stat on the right basically just gives you a bar graph comparing overnight tourism numbers. All of these statistics came from the BTB, that's the Belize Tourism Board, and they obviously track those statistics when people come into the country and you fill out that little customs form, whatever it may be, and you tell them about the activities you're going to be doing, and they count those up, they see who's a visitor and what the tourism stats are. So these stats came from them. The best kept secret, though, isn't just looking at the tourism numbers, because there's a way we can take this one step further. And I've kind of given it away by clicking the slide over too soon. Maybe I need to work on my showmanship, but the real key to finding out what's going to be the change in tourism is looking at the airlines, because the airlines don't book flights on the basis of if we fly, they will come. The airlines use their own internal reservation system. So if American Airlines sees, okay, we have a significant amount of people trying to book from Denver, we have a significant amount of people trying to book from Seattle, they're going to go ahead and add a flight so they can capture that revenue stream. Now, if people are not choosing to fly, they're obviously going to retract flights. The airlines are very efficient with this system because they have, a significant amount of data to back it up. So currently coming into Belize, we have Delta coming in from Atlanta and from LA. We have American Airlines coming in from Miami and Dallas, and we have United coming in from Houston and Newark. We also have Copa Airlines coming in from Panama, and I'll give you a little bit of information about why that is significant. It's less significant now because American Airlines has just made a slight change in their flight plan, but Copa Airlines, the national airline of Panama, gave Europeans the opportunity to make it to Belize without having to clear United States customs. So it opened up a lot of other countries to come into Belize without having to go through the process. As many of you are Americans, it's a lot simpler for you to come and go from the US. Obviously, you have a US passport. Some other countries, it's significantly more difficult. Many of you obviously know this. But what Copa Airlines did was it opened that opportunity. Now, American Airlines took this one step further when they made people capable to come from London via Miami and go to Belize in one travel day. So they opened up European travel to make it to Belize in one day. This was the first time that was ever possible. Now, what are the new airlines doing? What's the change going on right now? So we're going to look at a few airlines that aren't listed here. Although these airlines are changing and adding flights, we're going to specifically look at what's new coming into the market. First, I want to start with WestJet. And we do have some Canadian viewers out there. You'll immediately be familiar with WestJet. For the American viewers who aren't, WestJet is one of the largest carriers in Canada. And in December of 2016, they came into the market with 2 weekly flights from Toronto, adding a number of 276 passenger seats per week coming to and from Belize. After that, we heard the announcement, which is yet to be released, but this is what we're hearing now, that they're going to be adding additional flights in 2017 from Calgary and Montreal. That would be an additional 552 passenger seats per week. And WestJet is just testing the market right now. I personally, because I'm a Canadian and my mom lives in Toronto, so I go to visit her sometimes, I've personally tried to book on that flight from Toronto to Belize, and it is always full. So my anticipation right now is that they are going to be coming in with quite a few more flights. I'm sure for the most part all of you are familiar with the great Southwest Airlines. In October of 2015, Southwest announced that they were going to be adding daily direct flights from Houston Hobby. That daily direct added a whopping 1,120 passenger seats per week. But you know what? They said the next month, this isn't enough. We need another flight. We have more people trying to get to Belize. And they added an additional flight from Houston Hobby on Saturdays, another 160 passenger seats per week. In March of 2017, they added a direct flight from Denver, adding another 160 passenger seats per week. Again, this is just Southwest testing the market, testing to see what the demand is from Denver. And based on just meeting people around the island, seeing how many people are on that Denver flight, I'm sure they're going to be adding a significant amount of more flights from Denver. But in June of 2017, another whopping announcement came when Southwest announced they're going to be doing daily direct flights from Fort Lauderdale. That's 1,120 passenger seats per week as well. The other American carrier that just is coming into the market now is JetBlue. So JetBlue is kind of delaying on how many flights they're going to be introducing from Fort Lauderdale. The announcement has been made, and we're waiting to hear what the exact number is. But they will be doing direct service from Fort Lauderdale and another destination that they have yet to announce. So when we look at the net change in flights, we have WestJet coming in with a whopping 828 passenger seats per week. We have Southwest Airlines coming in with an even greater 2,560 passenger seats per week. We're still waiting on what JetBlue is going to do, but that gives us a net total change of 3,386 passenger seats per week. Now, for those of you who don't have your calculators out, that equates to 2,370 individuals coming to Ambergris Caye. You know that 70% of the tourism is coming to Ambergris Caye. So if we take 70% of 3,386 passengers, that's 2,370 people coming to Ambergris Caye per week. Now, the next foundation pillar we're going to look at is the baby boomers. The baby boomers aren't a theory. The baby boomers aren't something that, might happen. The baby boomers are a proven wave of population that is coming and is at the age of retirement, has just entered the age of retirement. And we're going to look at exactly what impact the baby boomers are going to have on Belize. So there's about 4 million people who are retiring every year since 2014, and that's going to go on all the way to 2034. About 80 million people are expected to retire over the course of this wave, and this equates to roughly 10,000 people retiring per day for 20 years. Now, I'm not sure if that sunk in with you, so I'm going to repeat it one more time because this is an amazing stat. That equates to 10,000 people retiring every day for a whopping 20 years. Now, I know all these people aren't going to move to Belize, but we're going to take a look at the stats of how many people are looking to relocate. So according to the latest statistics, more Americans than ever before are retiring outside of the US. Some 17% more between 2010 and 2015 compared to years prior. And I can assure you that during the election in the past year, the numbers didn't go down, the numbers tended to go up, and we're not seeing a change in that so far. So there's a lot more people now who are saying, you know what, I'm going to consider relocating to another country. And they're making a checklist of things and they're deciding, okay, what is important to me? As Vivian Roja put it, an associate professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio, she says the biggest obstacle is not speaking the language or knowing the culture. That's why it's such a huge asset being the only English-speaking country in Central America. So let's take a look at the numbers and let's take a look at the stats of how many baby boomers are actually looking to retire outside of the US. According to an AARP life stage survey, 59% of baby boomers plan to relocate. This doesn't mean they plan to relocate out of the US. This just means they plan to relocate from their home. Of those 46,100,000, it's no surprise 21% plan to relocate to Florida, 18% plan to relocate to Arizona. Although I will say this study was done slightly before the election last year, and I assure you those numbers have gone down at this point. But what about the other 28,121,000 who plan to relocate somewhere other than Florida and Arizona? We want to know about that 28 million. Like most of my friends down here who are baby boomers or have relocated, they're going to be making a list. Now, some of the things that are on the list of the other baby boomers I've met include language, English speaking, like we mentioned. 91% of Americans only speak English. So when they're looking at a destination, for the most part, from all the baby boomers I've personally spoken to, they don't want to go to Mexico and deal with Spanish-speaking doctors and deal with Spanish-speaking lawyers and do contracts in Spanish. It's much more comfortable to go somewhere with a similar legal system that speaks English. Time and ease of travel. So Belize is 650 miles to the U.S. To Miami, it's approximately an hour and 15-minute flight time. So it's a very, very close proximity as opposed to other places in Asia or Europe or South America. Lifestyle and cost of living. There's plenty of other expats. I know my grandma, she loves being down here because she can go walk down the beach with her friends, or people drive golf carts down here so they can all go drive around together and go have lunch and go get tea and just, relax on the beach and stuff. So my grandma loves that factor. The cost of living is something that is, can really work in your benefit. If you're looking to get a lot of imported goods, cost of living tends to be higher, but if you're getting local Belizean goods, cost of living is significantly lower. So it does tend to balance out there. Unless, if you're looking to just do more local goods, then you can do significant amount of savings. A big, big factor for baby boomers, investors as well, people relocating is politics, government, rule of law, and stability. That's why the British common law system we have is such a massive factor. There's no real political instability in Belize. Just the other day, I met the Minister of Tourism. He was over at my house. We were talking about all the new updates about what's going to be happening in the upcoming year. And it's a country where the politicians are very friendly. They're very accessible. You can talk to them. You don't have that feeling in the U.S. You don't have that feeling in Canada. So that's something I really love about Belize. Obviously, the climate is amazing. It doesn't take a scientist to know that. Being on the beach and being near the reef and being able to go out boating or go fishing or go diving or any of these things is an amazing thing. Shopping, all the needs are within reach. Healthcare, we have access to hospitals, 24-hour care, doctors do house calls, and that's actually the big thing a lot of the expats I know love down here. Just being able, it's like being in the 50s when you could have called your doctor and they came to your house. That's how it's been described to me. And I love it because, if you're sick, you don't want to leave your house. So it's amazing being able to have a doctor come over, and for a fraction of the cost of what you would pay in the US, they'll come tend to you at your home. Insurance is readily available. So there are a lot of reasons why baby boomers are choosing to come to Belize. And I know just from speaking with John and, being directly involved in the region, that Belize is going to be seeing a disproportionate amount to other areas in the region. It's just becoming on the map. I get more people emailing me asking about it every day. And yeah, it's just an interesting time for Belize right now. So this next slide here about hotel and nightly rental inventory, I would argue is the most important thing I'm going to go over in this webinar. Now, what this stuff is really going to go into detail on is what happens when you mix baby boomers coming down, relocating to Belize, with tourism numbers increasing. And we have a very interesting reaction when these two things come together. Now, to give you a little bit of background information, in 2012, Ambergris Caye finally became a blip on the map and hit 2,000 rooms. That's the number of rooms needed to be a major tourism destination and have travel agents, travel consolidators, and charter companies send new tourism down to the market. So it has a positive effect when you hit 2,000. It's a bit of a tipping point, actually, because these travel agencies are going to start sending more tourism down. Now, some people may say, wow, that's overbuilt, or 2,000 seems like a lot. For basis of comparison, Cancun has 44,000 nightly rental and hotel rooms. So we still have a long way to grow down here. Now, the real question here is, since 2012, what has been the net change in inventory? Because we've seen on the other slides, we've had a significant increase in tourism. We've seen 3 years of consecutive growth on top of our peak, our highest tourism growth point. So how many rooms have we added in response to all this tourism coming down? First, I want to talk about the reaction of what happens here, because this is very relevant to the increase and net change in number of units available to rent. So for this example, let's say we have some investors. They own a property in Belize. We'll call them the Joneses. So the Joneses own a property. They come down for 2 weeks of the year, and the rest of the year they rent that property out to vacationers coming down to enjoy Belize. So for 2 weeks of the year only, that is occupied by the Joneses. Now say a couple baby boomers come down and they want to buy that house and relocate here full time. Well, what happens when the baby boomers buy the Joneses house? That's right, it's taken out of the rental pool. It's no longer rental inventory as someone is living in it full time. So that's one less unit in the rental inventory on the island. Since 2012, accounting for this factor of baby boomers relocating and buying these condos and other nightly rentals, we've actually almost been neutral in terms of growth for units. So it's driven rental rates up and has been a significant player in the fact that the rental rates are higher here and investors are getting a higher return. Just for the first time, had a couple of branded hotels actually take notice of the island, which is just reaffirming the investment opportunity here. We've had a Hilton that is going to be opening on island, and we also have a Wyndham that's poised to be opening on island. So the major brands are just starting to take notice of this. And that's actually another thing I want to touch on here just briefly. We'll backtrack a bit. In Belize, we don't really have any major franchises aside from, Remax and other real estate franchises. It's not that the franchises aren't allowed to come in. It's just that they haven't yet seized the opportunity. So what I always like to tell people is, imagine you could go in a time machine back 30 years and invest anywhere you could possibly think of. Well, for the most part, most locations you're going to think of are going to be pre-McDonald's or pre-having Starbucks or, pre-major hotel brands. So that's something that we actually have here, and this is the real opportunity in Belize. The next point I want to go over is something that I get emails about every day. It's actually kind of funny that this would even be relevant, but based on the amount of attention this is bringing already, it's extremely relevant and is going to have a significant impact on real estate values in this market. And that's Leonardo DiCaprio. He's going to be developing a $250 million eco-resort on his private island that's located just 2 miles off the coast of Ambergris Caye. The island is called Blackador Caye, and this is going to be a restorative project because most of the island's coastline and shoreline has been eroded. So DiCaprio really wants this to be restorative. He wants the energy to be harvested from solar panels. He actually just had his environmental impact assessment completed. This is the first step when you're doing any major development like this in Belize, so it's a huge step forward and a great indicator for the project that it's going according to plan. A couple of articles this has been featured in. It was featured in the New York Times. It's been featured in Business Insider. These are a couple of reasons why so many people are taking notice of this. And also, if you're interested in seeing the island, I have a video on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and search for Leonardo DiCaprio Private Island drone footage. You'll see my video there and you can check the island out. It's a beautiful island. And like I said, It's located just 2 miles off the west coast of Ambergris Caye. Here's some of the renderings and a photo of the island. Like it mentioned on the previous slide over here, he's going to be developing 36 estate homes. Now these are only by private invitation. You can see the rendering on the right there. They're going to be absolutely beautiful. The rendering for the overwater bungalows, there's going to be facilities. He's going to be restoring and bringing back many of the bird species that are no longer there. So it's truly going to be an amazing project. Here's a little map just to give you perspective of where this island is relative to Ambergris Caye. So you can see I've circled on the top left there Leonardo DiCaprio's Eco Resort. And an area I'm pointing out now that I'm going to start to bring to your attention is Secret Beach of Ambergris Caye. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, primarily the island has been developed on the east coast. You can see all the little points that Google Maps identifies there are majority on the east coast. There's a few on the west coast, but for the most part it's relatively undeveloped. You can also see behind where Secret Beach is that area where all those roads are put in place, and that area is poised to be the next area of development on the island. We're seeing at Secret Beach now, the area that's just been pointed out, several new bars, restaurants opening there, boutique hotels. I was actually just sitting there yesterday. It's amazing. You go up, you can get a bite to eat. You look out at the west coast and there's some of the most beautiful water, all these amazing sandbars. You drink your drink and look out at DiCaprio's Island. So this truly is a major draw for people. The town of San Pedro is relatively overdeveloped right now. The island is starting to push north, as you can see. It's the natural place for the island to grow. So this is really the area of future development, and we're going to talk more and more about why this is the bullseye. At the end of the webinar, I'm going to identify a couple lots that I feel are great investments that are directly in this area and that are directly in the bullseye. When I say bullseye, I guess you kind of want to surround with why that one area would have, so many things going on around it. The reason it's the bullseye is because to the south, we have the town of San Pedro. To the west, we have DiCaprio's private islands being developed. To the east, we have the Barrier Reef. But what's coming into the north is quite possibly the most interesting thing, and that's the new international airport that was announced by Prime Minister Dean Barrow September 23rd of 2015. From the latest updates that I'm hearing on this, they have just selected a builder who's going to be doing this airport. They've selected a location, they've cleared the location, so we're seeing the steps we want to see, the indicators we want to see that this is going to be going. We haven't seen any set dates yet, but all the steps are there and all the indicators are there that this project is moving forward. And actually the first phase of the plan was to pave the road going north of San Pedro town, and they've done that essentially all the way up to where that Secret Beach area was, and they're going to be paving it backwards from where the airport is going to be, and that will be the first phase of the plan. Like I mentioned before, the bullseye. So you'll see that area where the roads are put in place in red. The arrow going north here is where the new international airport, it's going to be going further north of that, but that's the direction it's going to be going in. The yellow circled island there is Leonardo DiCaprio's Island, and obviously to the south is San Pedro town. Here's a photo of Secret Beach for those of you who haven't been there yet. It is a bustling area. I actually met, like I mentioned, with the Minister of Tourism last week, and he was telling me about how they're going to be expanding this beach. They're going to be putting infrastructure into this area, and they really are identifying this area as the new point of development. When you get information like this, when you're trading stocks, insider information is illegal. One of the great things about real estate is that insider information is not illegal. It's actually encouraged. You want to know these details that, okay, the Minister of Tourism the other week is talking about how they're going to be bringing infrastructure to Secret Beach area in response to all the people coming down, how the Minister of Tourism is saying they're going to be expanding the beach. So these indicators are all very important and actually encouraged when you're looking at real estate investments. So that's why I love to share those with you. Couple of magazines that Secret Beach has been featured in. It was featured on TripAdvisor again. Not so secret now. It's kind of the joke. You go to Secret Beach, but it's so busy and so bustling and so fun that it's just not a secret anymore. WestJet magazine featured it and gave an amazing review about Secret Beach if you want to check that out. Here's the lots I was telling you about. So I've identified 3 lots, and I wanted to identify 3 lots in the area with financing available. For the most part, there's only a couple more lots that are listed. From what the due diligence I've done, the research I've done, these are the 3 best deals available in this market right now. And like I said, there is financing available. If you have any questions about the financing, I'm more than happy to discuss that. So there's a lot of attention and development going into this area, and it really is the tipping point of so much growth. And all the things that I just talked about, the tourism numbers, the baby boomers, these are great things for nightly rentals. all the tourism coming down is a great thing because we have so much equity appreciation in this market right now. And we're just at the tipping point of this. And this is why I choose to invest in this market, even though we see deals from all over Central America and Caribbean. If you guys have any questions regarding Belize real estate, regarding Belize relocation, regarding these lots, feel free to email me. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day to check out my webinar. Again, my name is Will Mitchell with Remax Turley Team, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time, and have a great rest of your day.